What is it like to go through psychosis?
It's honestly like nothing I've ever experienced. I've gone through it about 7 times by now, and it's probably the worst thing. It's a break from reality, and your mind is completely lost. That's what it's like to go through psychosis. I got that dish. Hey y'all, it's Onika
and J.R.
and you are dishing with Dainty Dish. How y'all doing today, J.R.?
I'm doing well. We're recording this right after the holidays, so you know, I did the family thing. I saw the people that I care about. Saw you a little too much, but you know, everything's good with me.
I'm sorry. And we won a taboo. That was great. I'm doing good. Spent the Christmas with my fam. That was good. Saw Papa Dainty. That went well. Helped him cook, which was kind of cool. It reminded me of my childhood. So
see, good things did actually happen.
Good things happened in my childhood. I chopped some celery and some green onions and peeled some potatoes. That's what he had me do for our potato salad. So it was good. He said to me, "How do you not know how to chop green onions? You live by yourself."
He thinks that you cook.
He thinks I cook.
Yep.
He thinks I cook.
Because he trained you properly. You just don't cook.
He trained me to cook, but I don't cook. But anyways, this, as we said, is airing right after the holiday season, but it is our All Kinds of Crazy Wednesday. And we have a guest on our show. We heard her laughter, her giggle earlier. Augustina, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You have an infectious laughter.
Do I? Oh, that's a good compliment. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
So that question at the beginning, you know, I know your story a little bit. And I know you went through a period of psychosis. But before we touch on that, we want to talk about the younger years, the wonder years, if you will. Remember that Fred Savage or the wonder years? Fred Savage.
That's too funny.
Let's
so
talk
what do you want to
know? What was growing up like? What was family life like?
Family life was great. I grew up in Burlington. Small town back then.
They got black people in Burlington?
That's what everyone always says. Every time I tell them, they're like, there's black people there. I'm like, well, growing up in elementary school, there was like 3 of us. Mm-hmm. And then in high school, there was about maybe 10 to 15 out of, 700 students, I think?
Wow.
Yeah, so there wasn't many. But, yeah, I grew up in a small town. What were some things I used to do? I used to love riding my bike. I was very active. Rollerblading. I'm a second generation Ghanaian Canadian, so both my parents were born in Ghana, West Africa. But both my older siblings were born in Ghana, and me and my brother were born in Burlington. Well, Hamilton. Then we moved to Burlington when I was like 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So family life was good. Mm-hmm. Burlington was good. What was school like for you?
School is interesting. When I reflect back, I recall a lot of struggles. Struggles with trying to find friends, trying to fit in, you know, being the only black girl in your class and come to school with cornrows on, and then people are like, what's going on with your hair? You look like a boy, and this and that. So it was hard. I did realize, though, at a young age that humor brought people together. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say I was like a class clown, but I loved to make people laugh because I kind of knew, like, oh, maybe that'll help me, like, fit in. But yeah, like, it was okay. I mean, I had my ups and my downs. I wasn't the best student, but I tried. I wasn't A+ by any means, but I also didn't really put in that much effort into my grades. So I think if I actually tried a bit harder, I probably would have been an A+ student. But other than that, school life was all right. Played some sports here and there. Tried to play volleyball, basketball, soccer, anything. My dad would put me in anything I asked him to put me in. So I did field hockey. I did dance. I did volleyball. I did figure skating. And I sucked at all of them except for dance. Dance was the one thing I was like, yes, this is what I love. I love dancing. But yeah, that's what school was like for me.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And did you do any post-secondary after that?
Yeah, I did. So I did my undergraduate at York. I studied human rights and equity studies. That
sounds fancy.
Super fancy.
I know, right?
That sounds super fancy.
It does sound pretty fancy. It was a great program. I was going to do 4 years honors, but because I was dealing with depression, I couldn't finish 4 years, so I just did a 3-year BA. But other than that, undergrad was interesting.
So you said you were dealing with depression. Where was that coming from?
Mm-hmm. So actually, like when I think back, there was a time actually in grade 7 where I kind of knew something was off, and my mom took me to the doctor, and I remember the family physician saying like, "Are you depressed?" And my mom was like, "No, she's not depressed. What do you mean? Well, she has nothing to be depressed about." And I just remember sitting there and being like, "Is that what I'm feeling right now?" But I kind of brushed it under the rug. And then when I got to university, I kind of felt those emotions come back up again, kind of would isolate myself here and there. And I just knew something was off, but I didn't know exactly what it was. But yeah, it turns out that it was depression. It was hard too, because growing up in Burlington and then going to York, and I lived on campus too. Mm-hmm. So that was a huge, huge change for me. Like I grew up with basically no black people, and then all of a sudden I'm around so many black people. And it was like, how do I fit in with the black people? But then how do I also fit in with the white people? And how do I fit in general, right? So, yeah, and then I was dating my ex. But he also helped me spiral into depression as well. But yeah, it was a tough time. I kept it hidden.
Did you hide it from your family?
Yes, definitely hid it from my family and friends. I would spend nights crying in my dorm room, but I kind of was embarrassed because I kind of knew I was going through depression, but I wasn't ready to face it. Mm-hmm. I did do some counseling, therapy on campus, which was interesting, but it was really hard because the stigma just kept getting at me, right? No, you're not depressed. You're, a young black woman. Like, what do you mean you're depressed? Like, you need to be strong and powerful.
Is that
right?
what you were telling yourself, or is this what other people were telling you?
What I was telling myself and what other people would tell me if I was like, oh, I'm feeling kind of off. Growing up, my family, mental health is not something people talk about, right?
Not black people.
Exactly.
Not
black people. It's a very hard topic.
Taboo.
Very taboo because it's witchcraft. If you're dealing with mental illness, right? So it was a tough thing to go through. So
you just recently said your doctor asked you if you were depressed. Isn't that kind of something weird? Because if you don't really have a true definition to how to define it, when someone asks you, "Are you depressed?" You're like, "What?"
Yeah, you're literally like, I don't know.
I don't know. So maybe it's maybe about getting a true understanding of what depression is. Something that maybe needs to happen out there. But I don't know. I just found it interesting that your doctor asked you, "Are you depressed?" And you're like, I don't know. Like, what does that mean?
And I was in grade 7, so I think it was 12.
12.
Oh,
yeah.
that's so you don't even know. You don't even know.
No, I just know that I'm like sad and sleepy all the time, but I don't know what depression is.
And what was the counseling like in university? I did a little myself, and I found it a little.
Yeah, it has a lot of pros and cons. I'll start with the cons and then end with the pros. The cons were basically you were always on the wait list to be seen. There wasn't not enough counselors to service the whole student body. The pros, though, were it was free therapy. I mean, therapies can be really expensive.
Yeah.
Right. So, and also the location was great because I was living on campus, so I could just go see the therapist if I could get in on the wait list. And also the counselor was really nice. And I remember one time I think I was feeling like very, very, very depressed. And I remember emailing her and saying like, I'm literally about to have a breakdown. Like, can I come see you? And she was like, yeah, I can schedule you in. So that was a pro. But she was able to like fit me in that one time.
Like once you're like a client,
exactly,
they're a little bit more.
Yeah, but the wait list is it's long.
It's interesting you say that. I had a conversation with Onika and our little cousin yesterday. She's in high school, and she was talking about how there's a counselor in her school. And I guess 2 weeks ago, our episode, Onika and I went off having a conversation about how about access. And I've continued to say, no, there's access. Everything's there, but I keep hearing from people that no, there's not access. Like our little cousin said, hey, there's one therapist or one social worker for our whole school. Wow. And it's like there's like a couple hundred people.
She said something like, I think she said like, yeah, I can't remember what she said.
I don't know the number, but it was a number that was
large,
a large number, and one person for all those people, and it seems to be the general trend.
And you didn't have that support in high school, did you? Because I feel like you're around my age. Whatever that is.
I'm 28.
Okay, you're not anywhere close to my age.
Revealing your age?
36 as of Sunday. 36 this Sunday.
No way.
36, yeah.
I actually thought you were younger than me. That's wild. Okay, black don't crack for real, right? Honestly,
you look like Humpty Dumpty. Someone put you back together. I don't know how her black cracked.
My black did not crack. Stop it, JR.
No, you still good. You still good.
Thank you, August. I appreciate you.
You're welcome, girl. I got you.
But did you have those services in high school as well? And did you use them?
We had guidance counselors, but I didn't use them for my emotional being. I just used them to try to help me figure out what courses I should take to get to university.
And that's their job. So they're doing their thing.
We also had a chaplain because I went to Catholic high school. So there was a chaplain, so I guess I could have talked to him. What's
that like, feeling that you have some sort of problem, but being in a religious school? Like, because now you've got black parents, and now you've got a religious school. Like, that's got to be like, I don't know what the trifecta would be of like
navigating.
It's a woman of color. That's the trifecta.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. So like, but how's that?
Growing up in a Catholic school was interesting because, elementary school was Catholic too. High school was Catholic, but my parents weren't Catholic. They're Christian. Well, Pentecostal, actually, if you want to get specific.
With my parents, right? Or my mom.
So it was, for them, it would be weird when I'd say, like, oh, we're going to have Mass. And they'd be like, oh, you praying to Virgin Mary again? Because that was something that's different in the Catholic Church, right? They pray to Mary. But Pentecostal, they just go straight to Jesus, right?
Skip the middleman.
They skip the Mary and go to Jesus. But yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I still did the sacraments and everything like that, so I was still baptized, did the confirmation, and did all that. So I was kind of like a fake Catholic, kind of sort of.
Yeah, I'm a pseudo. I call it pseudo Catholic. I went to Catholic school as well. I did all of that stuff. Yeah. I hated every minute of it. I'm like, this is just wrong. I don't know what this is. It's wrong. But you were saying your parents are very, very religious. Did they ever try to pray the cray away?
Yeah, girl.
Hands on head, like the whole jive.
Come on, that's how black people are, especially when it comes to prayer. Yeah, I mean, when I get into telling more about my story, that was one thing, is that they were just praying all day, every day, fasting, all that, right? Because prayer resolves everything.
Power of prayer.
Yes.
If you ask my mom, she'd say the same thing.
Yeah, power of prayer resolves everything. I mean, and I am I go to church. I don't go to Pentecostal or anything like that, but I do understand the power of prayer, but I don't think that's the only thing that helps cure people, if that makes sense.
I agree with you. I agree with you there.
Yeah. I think there's multiple layers. You can't just sit there and pray and expect for everything to just disappear.
He helps those who help themselves.
Exactly. And I think that's one thing that's very, very important. Because you have to help yourself, too. Exactly.
So we're going to go back to university. You did counseling.
Yes.
It helped a little.
Yeah, a little bit here and there. I mean, I didn't really deal with the emotions like I should have been dealing with. And the reason why I actually pushed myself into counseling was because I had found out my ex was cheating on me. For about, how long was it at that point? 2.5 out of the 3 years we had been dating. So that's basically why I went into counseling, because I was like, yo, I cannot deal with all these emotions. And he cheated on me actually with a trans woman. So a trans woman is a male. Well, was a male, or sorry, has the sex of a male, but identifies as a woman. So I don't remember if she had breast implants, but she still had the male genitalia. So that was one thing. Yes, that was one thing that kind of spiraled me. I was like, wait,
whoa.
what? Yeah. That's the one part a lot of people don't actually know, except for like my close friends.
That?
That changes a lot.
That'll put you in like, you're like, I was with an ex that cheated on me. I was like, yeah, been there, done that. Like, what's that about? No big deal. You're like, oh, you opened up Pandora's box there. That's like, it
was very, very intense.
Wow.
Yeah, and it wasn't just one trans woman too. So I actually ended up speaking to her, and she was like, oh, girl, there's more of us, and this and that, and he's a narcissist, and it was wild. I was like, my life is actually a movie. Like, actually, and the way I found out, oh my goodness. You want to hear that?
Talk about it. We got time. We got time. Wow.
So essentially what had happened was we had been dating, and I remember I went to his family's house. We had dinner. I had gone to his family's house, whatever. And then a couple weeks, his mom actually worked at my university. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking to the cafeteria or something like that. And I remember I saw her, and I was like, oh, hey, how are you? She's like, good. And then I was like, how is, so-and-so? And she's like, he's good. And I was like, oh, yeah, we were planning on coming over and doing something, I forgot. And she was like, you guys are still together? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, okay. And I was like, hey, that's weird.
Whoa.
And then an hour later, I got a text message, and the number was 99999. So basically someone was using an online text to phone platform, so I couldn't trace it back. And it said, Augustina, this is your guardian angel. Blank blank has been cheating on you for 2.5 years. The bitch's name is blank, and this is her number. And I was like, what the... Yeah, I literally, I thought, I was like, what? What is this? Yeah. So then I immediately messaged him, and I was like, hey babe, like I just got this weird like text. And he was like, oh, what did it say? And I read it to him, and he was like, oh, just ignore it. It's like a spam. And I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah. It's just a spam. Like just ignore it. Right. And I was like, are you sure? And I was only, how old was I? I think I was only 20 at the time. And I was like, are you sure? And this was my first like actual boyfriend too. Mm-hmm. And I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, just ignore it. Like, it's all good. And I was like, all right, but like, you wouldn't cheat on me, right? Mm-hmm. And he was like, no, I swear on my grandma's grave. I was like, what? Oh, well, if you swearing on your grandma's grave, I guess like, you mean like you're being serious. And so I had messaged one of my other girls, and I was like, yo, I got this weird text. Like, should we call the number anyways? Or like, should I believe him? She's like, call. She's like, you need to call. And I was like, well, I can't do it. I'm too scared. So my friend called. The girl was like, is this Augustina? And my friend was pretending to be me. And she was like, yeah. And she's like, oh my gosh, I was waiting for the day that you'd call me. You found out everything? And it was just downhill from there. She spilled everything. She told everything. She was like, yeah, like he would spend the weeks with you. And then on the weekends, because I would go home because I had a car. So I'd go home to Burlington on the weekends. And that's when he would like go downtown and like hang out with her and do all this stuff. And I was like, yo, I actually don't believe this. She sent emails of them like corresponding together. She was like, this is my website. Go to my website. There's pictures of us. I went on the website. There was photos. He like completely changed. Like he had a whole alter ego. So like he worked construction. So with me, like he was kind of like rugged, but on the weekends he was like wearing these like 3-piece suits and all this stuff and going to these parties and glitz and glam. And I was like, what the heck is this? Is crazy. Literally. It was crazy. And she was like, yeah, there's more than like me. Like there's a whole bunch of them. She's like, there was one time we went out. She's like, we were out for dinner in Yorkville, and another like really popular trans woman like walked in, and she went to the bathroom, and then he followed her, and then he came out, and you could tell like something just had happened in there. And I was like, what the? Yeah, it was bad. So I confronted him. He denied the whole thing. He was like,
Shaggy, it wasn't me.
He's like,
Shaggy.
He's like, that's not me. That's Photoshop. And I was like,
yes.
I said,
Photoshop.
Wow, that's some really good Photoshop then.
Good Photoshop.
That's some bomb ass Photoshop then, because this looked hella real to me. So yeah, he basically denied the whole thing, and then like he got angry. And he was like,
every man's safety net. I'm just gonna get angry.
Exactly. I'm just gonna get angry.
No, you ladies do it too.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so he just got like really angry, and then it was just like a whole mess. And I was like, just tell me, like, I understand that sexuality is fluid. Like, just be open and honest with me. Just tell me the truth. And he just couldn't. He literally couldn't, because I think for him it was hard to face that. That he possibly wasn't sure about his own sexuality, right? And I tried to create this safe space for him to be like, just like, let me know. Like, I don't judge, like, whatever makes you happy, like, just let me know. But yeah, so basically that's kind of what spiraled me into a deep depression.
A deep depression.
Very, very deep. It was, a very, very tough time.
So what was your next steps? Like, I'm assuming you ended the relationship.
Yeah, so actually we went on a break. And then I took him back like an idiot. And I was like, yo, like, let me just, he's like, yeah, like, let's just try this again. So I took him back, but I became very paranoid, basically like wanting to know where he was at all times, who he was talking to. Like, whenever his phone would light up, I'd like look, be like, who's texting you? Like, you know, who's texting us? Right? I just became,
who's texting us?
I just became very, very paranoid. And I knew I wasn't happy. And then I just would like, I'd tell him like, yo, you need to like be sorry for what you did to me and this and that. And he'd be like, well, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, I don't know, like write me a letter or do something. So like one day he like ordered flowers to my house with like a bear or whatever. And then another day he was like, oh, I wrote you this letter. And so like, it was like, you know, Augustina, I'm so sorry, whatever. I was like, okay, this is sweet. And a couple weeks later, I had posted the note on my wall in my room. A couple weeks later, all of a sudden I was just laying in my bed, and I just got this like download or something, and it was like, Tina, you better take that letter and Google that shit right now. Google it. I was like, what? So I just went and I grabbed it. I was like, okay, let me type in the first couple words. Bam, I found the whole letter on Google. I was like,
this guy's plagiarizing letters.
Yeah, all he did was write, Dear Augustina, love, da-da-da-da-da. That was it. The whole letter. I was like, yo, you couldn't even write a letter from your heart saying you were sorry. Oh, I found it on Google, and I was like, you know what? It says everything I want to say. And that was the last straw. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm actually finished with you. Like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. So I finally ended it. Mm-hmm. And then I just like felt like I wanted a fresh, so this is 2012 now. I was like, I just want a new start. And I was having conversations with my sister who lived in Edmonton at the time. And she's like, oh, you know, like maybe you should come out here. Like you're almost done your degree. I only had 2 credits left to finish my the 3-year. And I was like, okay. And if I decide to do the 4-year, I could just always come back, whatever. And so, yeah, I basically packed up my stuff and was on a flight to Edmonton. Literally like a month after I broke up with him.
Wow.
Yeah, girl.
That's quick.
It's a big move.
It's like okay.
And so essentially my brain kind of saw it as me like running away from him. Mm-hmm. Not like trying to get a fresh new start. Because I hadn't actually dealt with all of the emotions of like the breakup, of him cheating on me and all of that. I kind of just like buried it in my subconscious. And I was like, I'm just going to go to Edmonton, get a fresh new start, whatever. Mm-hmm. So went to Edmonton. And it was hard because, you know, new city. Mm-hmm. I'm there with my sister, which was awesome. But it was just like, new city, need to make new friends. I need to find a job. I need to like get money. I was like a poor university student, right? Mm-hmm. I can't be relying on my parents forever. And then, yeah. Do you want me to continue on to my story?
Continue on. This is the juice. We want the juice. We want the juice.
So, landed in Edmonton. And so if I pedal back a little bit... was it the door?
Keep going.
Oh, okay. So, if I pedal back a little bit. So before I had fully broken up with him, I wanted to go on a trip to Cancun with one of my friends. And I didn't have the money at the time. And he was like, you know what? I'll let you borrow the money and you can go to Cancun. And I was like, yeah, right. I was like, yeah, you better give me that fucking money after everything you did to me. You better give me that money. And I, you know, me being the angel that I am, I was like, yeah, I'll pay you back. And he was like, well, let's write up a contract. And I was like, a contract? He's like, yeah, it'll just say like your name and that you promised to pay me by like this date. It was like September 28th, 2012. And I was like, okay, yeah, because I'm going to like get a job and like whatever, I'll pay you back. So moved to Edmonton. I had like cut all communications off. And then he sent me an email. And he was like, you think you're going to run away from me and not pay me back? You better pay me back or I'll take you to small claims court, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, after everything you put me through, you were literally going to send me such a disgusting email over, it was only like $1,000 or something. But again, my mind was like kind of taking all of these things and kind of like putting them into like my subconscious.
Yeah.
So July comes and I get this new job and I'm thinking, okay, I got this job. I'm going to pay this guy back. How am I going to do that? This and that, blah, blah, blah. And this is when things started like getting kind of weird. So I knew the deadline was coming up to pay him and I still like didn't have the money. So weird things started like happening and I felt like things that I was watching on TV or conversations I was having was just reminding me of things happening in my life. Mm-hmm. So one example happened, I was watching True Blood. I don't know if you guys have heard of True Blood.
Yeah.
Love that show.
Right, okay, yeah, it's a great show. But it's not good when you're going through psychosis.
Not the show to watch.
Yeah, not
guys.
the show to watch. So there was one episode on True Blood, and I don't remember the exact episode, but I remember I was sitting there watching it, and I remember hearing like this weird noise, and the TV kept like doing this weird like staticky sound, and then the guy on TV was like, "You owe me money. Like you signed this contract." Da 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 da. And I was like, whoa, this is like reminding me of the contract I signed with my ex. And it was like the devil or something weird. And I was like, oh my God. And then like, and I got up and anytime I got up from the TV, I'd hear that weird static noise. So I'm like, are you like, is something pulling me to like continue watching the show or should I like move away from the show? And I just remember like it being like, you need to pay that money back or like things are going to happen to you. And I just remember being scared as shit. Like I was like, what the fuck? Like is the TV actually talking to me? Anyways, I brushed it off. A couple days later, I was home alone. I took out the garbage, and I thought I heard a noise. And I turned around, and I thought I saw my ex's reflection in the glass door. And I screamed, and I ran back inside, and I was like, holy shit. Can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Okay. I've already said like 10 swear words anyways. Yeah, so I was like, what? I was like, oh my God, is he coming after me? Because I don't have the money yet. Oh my God, what's happening? So like, I started like putting pieces together to try to like
not
make
in
this
the right way.
Exactly.
But yeah,
and that's what psychosis
about.
does to you is like you start trying to like everything means something, but it only means something to you. Nobody else would understand it because you're the one with the gift. Like only you know what's going on.
Gift. I'm the queen.
Right. I'm the queen. Like I know what's happening. So yeah. So I. Okay. That's okay. Yeah, so that was one thing that happened. And then the next thing you know, I started hearing voices. And the first voice, like it was very, 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 very faint, the first one I heard. And I remember it saying something like, I love you. And it was weird. And then I remember one night before I went to bed, I went into my closet and I saw like a 3D head coming out of the ground. And I was like, I was just so tripped out. I was like, what?
Were you on any drugs at all?
No. So, okay. Good question. Okay. So I did smoke cannabis, but not before I went into psychosis. So I had quit before. So it's a really good question because the physicians had asked me if I was possibly in a drug-induced psychosis.
Yeah.
But drug-induced psychosis only lasts like 6 weeks or something like that. It's a very, very, very small window, and I didn't fit into that window. So I was not high at that time. And but I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is not normal. But I also was like so out of it that I was like, whatever.
It's normal. It felt normal.
It's so hard to explain. It's like, because obviously if anybody else would go and see like a 3D thing coming out of the closet, they'd be like, what the hell is that? And shriek. But I was literally like, huh, okay, like
This is plausible.
Yeah, like
I
things
saw
are
Gollum
happening.
once. I saw Gollum from
Wow.
from Lord of the Rings, flitting around my room, glowing green. I thought it was normal. Like,
wow. See, that's
You never told me that, because now I think of you completely different.
Yeah, I saw Gollum. He was in I was high though.
Schmeagol.
I was high.
Yo, weed will do some crazy things to people, like 100%.
So you saw the head, and then what was next?
So, and then I was like, bitch, you better go to bed because there's something going on. So I went to bed and then started my new job. And I just remember like the first couple days it was great, but I kept thinking like I was having very strong deja vu. Mm-hmm. And I kept thinking, I've done this before. I've lived this life before. I've done all of this. Something great's going to happen. Like, I'm going to save the world or something.
Delusions of grandeur.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, one day in my office, I was just, typing up some work. And then I heard a voice say to me, this is a test. You're on a mission. And I was like, I'm on a mission? What? And I was like, I looked around thinking like, hey, it's like one of my coworkers playing a joke on me. Like, what's going on? There was nobody there. Kept looking around, and then I had like a shiny pen holder on my desk, and I saw like a reflection in it, and I looked closer, and I thought I saw my ex again standing behind me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what the heck? I'm like, this guy is the devil. I literally was like, he's the devil. Like, I will never forget, I texted one of my friends, and I was like, girl, blank is the devil. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, he's the devil. He's after me. Because I still hadn't paid him the money at this time. It was just, I think, just started end of August, and I still hadn't paid it. So it was still in the back of my head that I still have to pay this money, right? So saw the reflection, then the voices just like came, and basically they were just like talking every 2 minutes, and then they'd disappear for about 2 to 3 hours, and they'd reappear again. So they would say a variety of things like, you're on a mission, this is a test. Anytime I would do something wrong when I was like typing a report, they'd be like, you're so stupid, you're so ugly. And then first that was just the one voice, and then multiple other voices started to come in, and then it got so bad that anybody I had a conversation with, my brain could remember their like voice patterns, and if I thought of them, I could hear their voice.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. So, like, I literally was shaking all the time because I was like, I don't want anybody to, like, hear my thoughts. I don't want anybody to, like, know I'm thinking of them so that I'll hear their voice say something. I thought people could hear my thoughts because I'd look at them and I'd be like, you know what I'm going to say in my head. And then they'd just, like, look and be weird. But obviously they're going to act weird because I was acting weird, right? But at the time, you're just, like, you're so down the rabbit hole, you don't know what's going on, right? So I would have conversations with my sister, and I'd be like trying to listen to her, but I couldn't because I was literally sitting there just waiting for like another voice to speak to me. And then just the days got harder and harder at work. The voices got louder and louder. They're like, you're on a mission. Like, just do this, do this. They were like, you need to get rid of all the clothes your ex is seeing you wear because he's coming after you now for that money. And I was like, oh, shoot. Okay, so I started packing up my clothes. And I remember my sister being like, what are you doing? Like, you love these outfits. And I started like, I was like, no, I need to give away all my stuff. And she's like, why? I'm like, just trust me. I need to give away like all my stuff. Like, I'm on a mission. She's like, you're acting weird. Like, she knew I was acting weird. She's like, Tina, you need to sleep. I couldn't sleep though because literally I'd hear voices.
All night
long, all day. They told me that like they'd kill me in my sleep. If I didn't do something right, they'd kill me. If I didn't shut up and cooperate, they'd kill me. It was hard. And then, so before I even told my sister, I actually told my pastor. So I was going to church because I was like, okay, you're on a mission from God. Like, like, let's get back into church, da-da-da-da. I told my pastor, or youth leader, something like that. And I was like, I'm hearing voices. He's like, we need to pray against it. We need to pray. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's pray. So we would just pray. But it was just getting worse and worse. The voices were just getting louder. And they're like, you need to turn into a Muslim now. And I was like, what? They're like, you need to be a Muslim. And I was like, no, like, I'm a Christian. So I told my youth leader, I'm like, yeah, they're telling me I need to be a Muslim. He's like, no, that's the devil talking to you. You need to pray. You need to fight against this war, da-da-da-da-da. And so all of this piled on to me it was literally a nightmare. Literally a nightmare. I still was seeing hallucinations. So I would like look at the clock, one of those old, I don't want to say old fashioned clock, but one of the ones with the hands.
Yeah,
A real clock.
A real clock. Sorry, not a
cell phone.
Old-fashioned clock.
Not an analog or whatever they call it, not a digital clock. But I would look at it and I would look away and I'd look back and it would like an hour would have passed. So like just weird.
You have no sense of time.
No sense of time. Just weird things are happening. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like I'd be reading things and it would be like highlighting in yellow. So I would try to read the Bible because, you know, I need to pray everything away. Or I'd be reading the Bible. It'd be highlighting in yellow. I remember one day I had come home from work and I was just sitting in my room and I was just like, let me just read the Bible. Just focus. I was reading the Bible. And I remember hearing the voices say like, okay, the rapture's coming. Like, guys, go back and get her. Go back and get Tina. Like, just go back. She's okay. And I remember just sitting there shaking like, oh my God, are they going to leave me on earth? They're going to leave me here? Like, what's going on? Like, literally your brain is like on speed or something. Mm-hmm. Like, everything's racing. Just everything is just, you're just so exhausted.
Vibrating.
Yes. And then like one day I'd just be like super, super hypomaniac, like, you know, just hyper, like, yes, I can do it. Like, I'm an angel. Like, I'm here. I'm on a mission. I'm going to get things done. And then the next minute I'd be like, oh my God, I'm shaking because like so many voices are talking to me at one time. I couldn't even shower because they'd like literally criticize me on anything I would do. Like, that's how you wash your armpit? That's how you wash your butt? Like literally anything. So came to the point where I was like, yo, I need to tell my sister because I can't do this. And people at work obviously knew something was off because I was just acting weird, right? I just would sit there and I would just like stare at the screen and they'd try to have conversations with me and I'd just be like, I couldn't like form a sentence. So one lady was like, let's go for a walk. And I was like, okay. She's like, you know, you can tell me if anything's wrong. And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. And she's like, are you sure? She's like, you haven't even been eating. Like, you've lost so much weight and you've only been here a couple of weeks. So at this point, like, I was basically not eating because the voices told me any food that wasn't cooked by me was poisoned. So I couldn't eat. Basically, I wasn't drinking any water.
That sounds so familiar.
I was so dehydrated that, like, I couldn't even eat a muffin because a muffin was too dry. And I literally couldn't eat it because I didn't have any, like, moisture in my mouth. Exactly. I couldn't even eat a muffin. She was like, tell me if anything's wrong. And I was like, yo, I can't tell this lady I'm hearing voices. Like, how am I going to tell her? But I decided, I was like, okay, I need to tell somebody. So I told my sister. And she's like, oh, everyone hears voices. You're fine. And I was like, not like this. I don't think it's like this, girl. Like, this is something else. And she was like, no, you're fine. Like, you're just probably stressed from the new job. Like, you need to sleep. And I was like, okay, maybe you're right. But I was very angry, too. And then came the day where I knew I shouldn't have gone to work that day. I could barely even dress myself that morning. Like, the socks that I was even wearing, I had like one knee-high sock and one like ankle sock. I just was like, I was not with it. So I just remember taking the bus to work that day. And the bus, I could just hear all the voices chittering, chattering, da-da-da-da. I thought the bus driver was going to skip my stop on purpose. So I yelled. I was like, I need to get off here right now. And everybody was like looking at me. And I was like, let me off this fucking bus. And I just remember. And I got off and I was like, holy shit. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I got to work and obviously my coworkers were like, okay, you can't even dress yourself. Like, what the hell is going on? And my boss was like, do you want some help? And I was like, yes, I'm hearing voices and I can't do it anymore. And she's like, okay, let's go. And I was like, well, where are you going to take me to the hospital? I don't want to get committed. Like, I'm not crazy. I don't want to go into the psych ward. And she's like, no, we're just going to get you some help. And I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? And my coworkers like saw me like, you know, walking out and they're like, Augustina, are you okay? I'm like, I'm okay. But they told me that I need to turn into a Muslim. I can't handle it. And this and that, blah, blah, blah. So then I get to the emergency department and, the intake nurse is like, okay, you need to like sign these papers. And I literally could not understand them at the time because I was just like literally just hearing voices that I couldn't understand them. And they were just like, don't sign them. Don't sign the papers, the voices. And I was like, no, like I need help, da-da-da-da. And the lady's like, just sign it. She was like pissed. And I was like, okay, like I'll sign them. So I signed them. The next thing you know, I'm in the emergency department waiting for, to get what triage or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there. And then 2 psychiatrists come, and they're like, hi, I'm, Dr. Blah, 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 I'm Dr. this and that. They're like, tell us about yourself. I'm like, okay, my name's Augustina. I went to York University, or I'm still going. I want to work for the UN, like Kofi Annan, this and that. I remember this conversation very clearly. One of them was like, she was like super like smiley, like supportive, and the other one just looked so angry.
So serious. It's
She was-
always a good cop, bad cop.
Yes. And I'm like, why are y'all playing good cop, bad cop on me? Because like they're testing you, right? And I was like, yo, this lady's like so mad. So I like didn't even want to talk to the angry ones. I would only look at like the nice one. And then they were like, okay, there's a nurse is going to come and like check your vital signs and take some blood. I was like, okay. So at this point, I was actually very terrified of needles back then. So I just like closed my eyes and I put out my arm. And then the nurse came, put the, what's that thing that they put
That
on?
rubber.
The rubber, yeah. Puts the rubber on and then just does like a little tap. And I close my eyes. And then I'm like, I'm waiting for the prick. There isn't one. So I like open one of my eyes and I just see the nurse walking away with like 2 vials of blood. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, but she didn't even draw the blood. That's weird. But I didn't say anything because I just assumed that they had my best intentions at heart. But when I think back, I'm like, that was another test to see like how aware is she? Does she even know what's going on? But I didn't say anything. So they called my emergency contact, which was my sister. My sister came and my sister, I love my sister. She was so mad. She was like, my sister does not belong here. She's not crazy. She's just tired. She's tired. She just needs to sleep. But the doctor's like, no, like we think she's like in psychosis. Like there's something going on with her. She's like, no, she needs to sleep. I'm taking my sister out of here. And I just remember just sitting there being like, oh my God, what's going on? And they're like, she needs to leave. She needs to leave. And then the doctor's like, no, she's staying. And I was like, Vivian, it's okay. Like, maybe I need help. Like, I'm just hearing voices. She's like, Tina, you're fine. Just shut up. Don't talk anymore. They're going to commit you. And I was like, oh, shit. So I'm just sitting there. And the voices are like, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. So then basically the security wanted to, like, remove my sister at this point. And I was like, it's fine. It's fine. So, like, okay, we're going to put you in seclusion. So I was like, okay.
Here we go.
So they put me in seclusion. And I'm just, like, sitting there, just, like, staring. And again, I see the clock. And it's just, like, turning. And I remember looking, because where the seclusion room was, I could see a bit of the emergency waiting room. So I remember I looked and I thought I saw a guy in a wheelchair, and I was like, oh, there's a guy in a wheelchair. And the voice was like, okay, you gotta run away now. And I was like, what? And they're like, you gotta run away, like this is your break, like you need to do it. Ask to go to the washroom and then run for your life. And I was like, okay, like how am I gonna do this? Okay, like let me focus. Okay, I can make a break for it. So I knock on the door. Security guard's like, what do you want? I'm like, I would really like to go to the washroom. He's like, okay. Opens the door. And I checked to see the guy in the wheelchair. There wasn't actually a guy in a wheelchair. The guy was not in a wheelchair. So I was like, hey, I'm obviously still like going through something, seeing some weird things. So I go to the washroom, do my fake pee, and I'm like, all right, how are we gonna bust out this bitch? Like, how am I about to do this right now? So I'm just sitting there. I'm just like, okay, Tina, what are we gonna do? And I just see the security guard like just like pacing, right? Because like the door, you could just see like through the little
crack.
people. Yeah,
he
the
leaves
crack.
the door open.
I'm like, let's
so
look, and I'm like,
doing.
okay, how am I gonna do this? Okay, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna open the door. I'm gonna pretend like I'm walking back into the secluded room, and then I'm just gonna make a run for it. Oh God. So I literally opened the door. I start walking. And mind you, I'm in a hospital gown too. And I think all I had on was like my underwear. And, God. I start running. The security guard, he grabs me by the back of my hospital gown, literally grabs me back, picks me up by my neck, and literally carries me to the room, the secluded room, and throws me on the bed. And it's literally like choking me. And I'm like, ah!
Welcome to the psych ward.
Right? And I was like, holy shit. And then he just like runs out of the room and he's just like,
he was more scared than you.
I was like,
That's
yo,
security.
bro,
That's how
you
they
weigh like
behave.
300 pounds. Like, I'm this little frail, like at this point I was like 90 pounds. I was literally skin and bones. And I was like, yo, like you're going to hurt me. I can't hurt you. And I just started bawling my eyes out. I was just crying. And I was like, how did I end up here? Like, what the fuck's going on? So next thing you know, doctors come in. They're like, we need to give you some meds. I was like, I'm good. They're like, no, it'll calm you down a little bit. And they're like, you need to take it. And I was like, okay, fine. And they're like, we're going to transport you now to the inpatient unit at this other hospital. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay. And they're like, are you going to be good or do we need to restrain you? And I was like, I'll be good.
So what was it like hear, because I don't know, Onika, you've said that before, like that.
I'm told now there's proof.
But how did you feel in that moment? Like what?
I felt like shit.
Like if someone says to you, like, "Are you going to be good? Or are we going to restrain you?" That's like taking it back to like childhood, where like your parents are like,
"Yeah,
are you going to behave, or am I going to leave you at home?"
Yeah,
you know, like it takes you back to that, right?
I literally felt like shit. I was like, yo, these people think I'm gonna kill them or something. And it just reminded me of that stigma of how people think individuals with mental illnesses are so violent when it's really the complete opposite.
Well, I mean, it depends. It
depends on the situation, but the majority of them are actually not violent. But it's usually the security.
From their perspective, you haven't been diagnosed yet.
No, so they don't know. They don't know what the hell,
right?
what I'm about to do. But I'm like, I'm just like this little frail 90-pound 5'8" girl. Like, I don't have no weapons. I don't have anything on me. Like, what is the worst I can do? Spit on you? Maybe bite you? Like what?
The two things you just named are probably in the top 10 of worst things that someone can do to you.
That's probably what they were. That's probably what they thought I was going to do, was like bite them, do
something. Because biting and
something.
spitting definitely in the top 5 of things that someone can do to you that are not the
security.
greatest.
It's crazy the way security behaves in these hospitals.
Like, I mean, let's not blame security right now. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
No, I can understand where you're coming from, because also they are not sure of what I will do next, right? So I get it, but at the same time, I don't think that I needed to be choked
out.
And
it's excessive.
Oh, yeah, I think that was excessive. But yeah, I felt like trash. And then next thing you know, I'm on this gurney and I'm in this ambulance being transported, and I remember saying it to the paramedic. I was like, how does this city work? Does everybody hear everyone's thoughts? And I just remember her looking at me and being like, just go to sleep.
Please.
It's like, this city is crazy.
And this is all happening to you in Edmonton? Were you in Edmonton?
Yeah,
so you're in Edmonton, so you're away from your parents.
Yeah, only have my sister.
Only your sister. You're not in an environment where you're familiar, whether it be Burlington or Toronto.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wow.
Exactly,
wow.
Yeah. So this was wild. So I'm transported to this inpatient hospital, and this hospital, it's for individuals with mental illnesses, and it's literally like secluded, like in a forest. So we get there, and I have another intake appointment with the psychiatrist, and at this point the voices were so loud, like they were just screaming. I couldn't even make out what they were saying because there was just so many voices screaming. And then they were like, yeah, we're just going to take you to your room. So I was like, oh, great. So I just get walked to my room, and they're like, oh, you're lucky you don't have a roommate. It's just you. And I was like...
So true.
I was like...
So true.
Okay. So I just remember sitting on the bed, and I was just like feeling so exhausted. Like my mind, my body, and my soul was just... I was just so tired because at this point I hadn't slept. I think it was like 2 weeks. 2 or 3 weeks. I hadn't had any solid food. I don't think I even had water for like 2 weeks. So I was just, very fragile. So the nurse came in. She's like, we're going to check your vital signs. And she's like, and she was a black nurse too. So I feel like it would have been different if it was a white nurse. The black nurse, I could tell she had sympathy for me. For some strange reason, I could feel like we could relate to each other. Yeah, we could connect. She was like, what's going on? Like, tell me. And I was like, I don't know, I'm just like hearing voices. And she's like, are you stressed? And I was like, I think so. I'm like, but they said I'm on a mission, but I don't know why I keep failing this test. I don't understand what's going on. She was like, can I give you some medication to help you sleep? And I was like, yes, please. So she gave me some, I think it was olanzapine or something, some kind of sleep med.
One of the benzos.
Like yeah.
one of the benzos.
And she's like, yeah, like, just take this. So I took it, and then I was asleep for over 24 hours straight. So when I woke up, I think at this point I thought it was Saturday, and they're like, no, it's Sunday. And I was like, no, it's Saturday. Like, I just came here yesterday. Like, no, it's Sunday. And I was like, you're telling me I slept a whole day? I didn't even believe them. I literally had to check every single thing. I was like, let me see the calendar. Let me see your phone. Let me see this. Let me see that. Like, what the fuck? Like, I actually slept because I was so tired. My body was so tired. Then my sister had called my dad, so my dad flew in. My dad had literally landed from Ghana, I think, like 2 days before I went into psychosis, and then literally took a flight to Edmonton to come get me. And I remember just seeing him, and he was like, "What's going on, Tina? Like, are you okay?" And I was like, I don't know. I was just so depressed. And I just spent nights crying in there. And then we saw the psychiatrist, and my dad basically tried to convince her, like, yeah, she's fine. She's just stressed out. She's going to get help. I'm going to take her back to Ontario, and, she'll be around her family, and I think, she'll be better there. And I was like, yeah, that's good. Like, I want to leave. And she's like, okay, we'll discharge you. And then I remember going to my room to pack up the little things that I had, and there was a letter on my bed. And I was like, what is this? And my dad was like, well, open it. So I opened it. The letter said that they wanted to commit me in there for 2 months. My dad's like, you better throw that shit out right now. You're not staying here for another 2 months. And I was like, when I think back to it, I'm like, it's crazy that they thought that I needed to stay in there for 2 months after only seeing me for a couple hours. This was the emergency department people. They're the ones that made that recommendation that I should stay in there for 2 months. And I was like, that's so crazy that, like, just after assessing me for this shorter period of time, you think that I should stay in a hospital for 2 to 3 months? That's wild.
You think so? Really?
Yeah, because 2 to 3 months is a very long time.
I understand that, but just being from my vantage point of being someone who's had family members being in there for that period of time,
experience psychosis.
I think that they want to make sure that everything's okay because they don't know you, they don't know your baseline,
yes.
And they want to figure out
the meds,
whether or not right now are you, for lack of better words, are you faking it right now, or are you going over and above and beyond the way things are? So they really want to get a chance because if you're in a situation, you're somewhere for longer than I would say a couple weeks, eventually you're gonna the show that you're putting on, in the event that you are putting on a show, you're not gonna be able to maintain that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely
right?
not.
So I think maybe sometimes that's why they might.
Yeah,
is that
it's possible, but for me, I don't think 2 to 3 months in there is literally like jail.
I've spent
it's jail
with me because of the bipolar. Like once they realize I was bipolar, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to come down from your mania. So I've spent every single hospital stay I've stayed. I've spent about 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was that like for you?
Honestly, are you interviewing me?
Yeah. Tables have
Honestly,
turned.
The tables have turned. I've had 7 episodes, and as everyone knows, I've spent over a year of my life in psychiatric institutions, and it's really that first couple of weeks is like fun and games because you're still like you feel safe, but then like you have the bad side, you have the good side, you know about the bad side and the good side. So when you're on the bad side, you're in isolation.
Yeah,
you get restrained a lot.
Yeah.
You're mistreated by security, sometimes by the nurses. Yeah. So when they give you they get you on the good side, you're allowed to, because I'm a smoker, so you're allowed to have your cigarette
outside.
breaks every 10 minutes or every hour for 10 minutes.
Yeah, you're good today. You can go outside and have some fresh air.
It's like a shock. It is jail. It is essentially what jail I think would feel like. Because then there's Gen Pop. Gen Pop would be what you would be in for when you're on the good side, and then there's isolation.
Is it safe to say that when you're in a situation of psychosis, are you really aware fully of what's going on? So I know you've said in the past that, Onika, where there's been from your perspective, there's been mistreatment from security and some staff. Is it possible that it's all in your head? Just throwing it out there.
No, honestly, I can see where you can think that, because I too go through hallucinations, delusions of grandeur. I think I'm on a mission. The last episode I had, I thought it was 1970s in Toronto, and all the people that I came in contact with were avatars of people I knew in my real life. So my best friend was one of the doctors. My main doctor was another friend of mine from university, but it was her avatar, and we were in the 70s. So that was my hallucination. I had to get off a spaceship. We were on some kind of spaceship in Toronto, and I had to get off the spaceship somehow. Okay, so I'm fiddling. I did things I ripped out like phone jack. There was a phone jack at the hospital. I ripped it out of the wall trying to get the wires to like open the door, like real like Mission Impossible Inspector Gadget shit, right?
Yeah.
So they would come in. There would be like 4 or 5 huge burly security guards. I'm probably the same weight as you would have been during your time. I'm not eating. I'm not sleeping. So they want to. If I didn't take my meds, they'd give me a shot. They have to strap me down first. So I'm strapped down for, I don't know, it could be 10 minutes to me, but it could also be 3 hours because you have no sense of time.
Okay, so just so we know, like there is a possibility that
I was whenever I misbehaved.
You could be over
exaggerating. Whenever I
misbehaved,
I was strapped down. That's all I know. That's all that's all I'm aware of. Whenever and this is through across the board.
Yeah,
okay.
Like across the board, all episodes. Whenever I misbehaved. If I urinated in my bed or peed in a corner because I was doing something stupid, like, or I took my food and threw it against the wall, like, I'd get strapped down immediately.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm so sorry you went through that.
So let's get back to you. So
it's enough about me. Let's get back to you.
I don't want to talk about Onika anymore. I'm so tired of it.
Oh my God.
So you said, okay, your dad came down from gone to Toronto back to Edmonton.
Yeah, so he just had gone to Ghana for a visit. So I'm actually very lucky that like literally the day he touched down, I think it was like the next day, he got the call from my sister to come get me because my mom. Where was my mom? I think my mom was in Ghana too. But yeah.
So he comes to get you. He's saying, you know what? I'm gonna take you back to Ontario.
Yeah.
You see the letter that says they want to commit you for 2 months.
Yeah.
But you end up coming back to Toronto.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened?
I was not about to stay there for 2 months. Are you fucking kidding me?
So what happened when you came back to Toronto?
Absolutely not. When I saw that, my dad, no. Oh, God, I wouldn't.
Did things get better when you came back to Toronto? Did things get worse before they got better?
Things definitely got worse before it got better. The voices were manageable at this point, though. So they weren't as loud. They were still there, but they weren't as loud. So now I'm at home. I went to Joseph Brand, which is a hospital in Burlington, and basically they said that, before I even went into the program at Joseph Brand, I went to the emergency department because the voices had gotten louder, and one of the voices was saying that it was the devil, and that was the scariest one, and that one was telling me that I needed to kill myself, and that was the scariest of the scary. Like, I was like, okay. I told my parents, I was like, yo, I actually can't do this anymore. Like, take me to the hospital. I need to go. So I remember we went to the emergency department, and they were like, okay, like we can, like you can spend a night here. And then I was like, wait, no, I don't want to spend a night here. Like, I want to be at home. So like, okay, you know what? You're free to actually go, because I was at the point where I wasn't like so deep entrenched in psychosis, I could still make like decisions on my own. So I was like, yeah, let me go home. So I remember I think it was my brother-in-law or my mom or dad, someone picked me up. And then, I went back home, voices, whatever. But then they ended up referring me to a program called the Phoenix program. And so the Phoenix program is designed for individuals who are experiencing their first episode of psychosis. So I was on a wait list, of course. So at this point, I had come home from Edmonton in October. So it was October 2012. I did not see somebody until January. So that time in between was very difficult for me because, the voices were talking, criticizing me. I was just sitting there wondering, like, okay, so, like, when should I end my life? Like, I was literally on the verge of, like, I actually think I'm done here.
Did they prescribe you anything? Were you on anything?
So when I went into the program, I had a social worker, occupational therapist, a nurse, and a psychiatrist, and he did prescribe me some medication. I think it was olanzapine.
Olanzapine.
Yeah. And also lithium. And I think I only stayed on that for like a week, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And the voices were like, don't take the meds. You're good, girl. You don't need those things. And of course I listened. But then I had conversations with them, and I said, I feel like I want to try like the more holistic route. And so my parents and my friends and family encouraged me to kind of like find passion for things that I kind of lost. So with psychosis and depression, it kind of takes things away from you. So as I mentioned earlier, like I love to dance. And that was one thing that I stopped doing because the voices would just criticize me like, girl, you can't dance, you can't do this, you can't do that. So like I literally just stopped doing anything I loved. And then I basically I had to force myself to try to find my passions again. So I started dancing. did my own like dance therapy. I started painting, so I did my own like art therapy. And then, so the nurse and occupational therapist, they'd actually come see me at my house. So I was very lucky that I had a team. And I think that's one thing that, like, honestly, if I didn't have a team, I don't know if I would be
Where
here.
you'd be.
Honestly. Because that collaborative care, that really helped me. The fact that I knew I had a whole team behind me and it wasn't just one psychiatrist, but it was literally a team pushing for me. And knowing that, like, I too also, like, the road to recovery is not simple, right? And to know that, like, it's literally in my hands whether or not I want to
be well.
Exactly. And I think that's one thing people forget, especially when it comes to mental health and mental illness, is that they think, okay, if I just take this pill, I'll be happy again. And it's not like that. It's literally like, okay, take the pill, and the pill might get you to the baseline where you were before, maybe still a -2, but you literally have to push yourself. And I think people forget that literally mental health is in your own hands. Like, it's literally you. It's your responsibility. You know what I mean? And so the team was great. And then when the voices finally started to quiet down, I enrolled in my last 2 courses at York. And I decided I didn't want to do the 4-year because I was still hearing some voices here and there. So they would put me in a quiet room to, like, write my exams. They were very accommodating, but I was like, I can't do 1 more year. Like, I just can't. I can't push myself. Like, I just need to finish this degree. Let me just do the 3-year. And then I graduated. And then I said, I want to go back to Edmonton. I said, there's still things out there for me. I don't know what was wrong with me, but I literally told my parents, I was like, I'm going back to Edmonton. They're like, why would you want to go back to a place like that? You were so sick. Why would you want to go back there? And I was like, I feel like there's something I need to do there. So I literally went back in August of 2013. And as soon as I landed, I got a job. And then I lived there for about 3 years. My support team in Burlington made sure I had the same supports out in Edmonton. So I had, like, a nurse, a social worker, a psychiatrist, and a psychologist. I did CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy, which really helped me to combat a lot of my negative thinking. And we basically realized that all of the negative things the voices were saying had to do with my own self-esteem issues that I had, like, kind of buried deep down, that had come up in the form of voices. And I don't think I mentioned this before, but, like, the first voice was actually my ex's voice. And then afterwards, I did mention that, right? Yeah. And then afterwards, it was my family and friends. And then it started to be anybody I had conversations with. I remember their voice patterns. So I had the support team. And then I was diagnosed with Bipolar 2. What was that, 2016? When I was just at the tail end of CBT is when they diagnosed me with that.
Okay, so being diagnosed with Bipolar 2.
Yeah.
When you first were told that... What was your reaction? What happened? Were you by yourself? Was your sister with you?
I was by myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I had just finished a CBT session with my psychologist, so I went to go see my psychiatrist, and she was like, "Yeah, so I think you're bipolar 2," and I was like, "Oh, what does that mean?" She's like, "Well, with bipolar 2, you've at least experienced 1 episode of hypomania, but you experience more bouts of depression rather than mania."
Okay.
And I was like, oh, that makes sense because most of the time I'm down, not super up, but I'm down. So, yeah, my reaction was kind of like, that's interesting. But I also was like, I don't like labels. So some people like labels because it helps them to understand kind of
going on.
Exactly. But for me, I was kind of like, no. Like, it actually took me a while to tell people bipolar 2. Like, there's some people, some of my family and friends will be like, I didn't actually know that you were... I don't think my parents actually know. I don't think I told them that I actually am bipolar 2. They knew I went through psychosis and depression, but they don't actually know.
There's no like title.
No,
for that.
they
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, there's still people, like, if I say bipolar 2, they're like, oh, like, you never put a name on it, and I was like, yeah, like, because I'm not really a labels person, and also I have my own. How do I say?
Opinions?
Yeah, my own opinions with, like, diagnosing and, like, the DSM and all of that.
I don't know what DSM is.
Oh God, what does that stand for? Diagnostic something. It's a manual that they use.
You know what I'm talking about.
We talked about this.
Yeah, we did talk about it. I know
the
exactly
diagnostic.
Yes.
Something manual, right?
Something. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I know
and there's
exactly.
like
13.
There's so many versions now.
Yeah,
and,
they just came out with another version last year.
Yeah, so that's what they use to diagnose people. So they kind of look through this book, and you do the scales and whatever. And if you fit in, then okay, this is what you are. So for me, it was a little bit problematic because I was like, how can you diagnose me as that when like I still feel like you don't really know me? But I like it's a difficult thing. It's difficult
because I guess you're coming from a standpoint of this person doesn't know me, so they don't know what I am like regularly.
Yes.
So you don't know if I'm naturally a up
Hyper
person or naturally a down. Okay,
exactly.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
When I first was in therapy in Burlington in the Phoenix program, I remember one day I went to go see the psychiatrist, and he was like, "Oh, you seem happy today," and I was like, "No, I'm actually down." And my nurse was like, "No, she's actually down today." And I just found that interesting because I'm like, okay, yeah, I only see you.
Because the nurses are with you more.
Exactly. Yeah. And they actually know you, but the psychiatrist only sees you every so
Once
often.
Every
just
3 days.
Like, okay, are you on the medications? Are you not on the medications? What are the symptoms?
Side effects.
Side effects. Exactly. All that. So, yeah, I mean, the diagnosis is there.
How does it affect you today? Do you think there's any hurdles?
So, yes, there's hurdles because I do experience episodes of depression. So, I went through an episode this summer. Mm-hmm. It was very, very difficult for me. It hadn't been this bad since 2012, since I went through psychosis. So, I went through an episode of depression, and it was very bad. Like, I was actually, again, about to contemplate suicide. And I just felt like my world was ending, and I was like, I've come so far. I'm this mental health advocate, and I preach all these things, but yet here I am going through my own episode. Mm-hmm. Like, who am I? Am I a hypocrite? Da 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 da. So that was a tough time for me. But then also the diagnosis helped in that instance because I was like, hey, you know what? I am bipolar too, and the episodes are going to happen. And
this is your bipolar.
This is my episode.
This is just a part of life right now for you.
Exactly. So yeah, now I'm here.
Wow.
So you mentioned, go ahead.
That is the short. There's still a lot more of my story that I literally it would take us hours to go through my story.
We should have you on. We're gonna have you on again, so you can give us the info then too. But you're saying you're a mental health advocate. Mm-hmm. What types of things do you do?
Yeah.
Did you have another question? Sorry, Jared.
No, that kind of aligns with where I was going.
Okay,
so
perfect.
Cool.
Yeah. So essentially, after I went through, CBT and all that stuff, and then was diagnosed, I kind of realized that I needed to share my story, and I felt like whenever I shared mine, I also helped empower others to share theirs. Mm-hmm. And I know the stigma there's, it's crazy, but I always reminded myself, if we don't have these tough conversations about mental health, then how do we expect there to be any change? So on Bell Let's Talk Day, back in 2015, I want to say, or 2014, is when I came out. I did a blog post on my one of my friends' blog that we shared, and basically it was like, yeah, so I went through this, and a lot of people were like, whoa, I would have never known that you went through that, Augustina, holy smokes, this and that. And so from then on, I decided I just wanted to continue sharing my story, continue spreading awareness about, mental health, mental illness, combating the stigma. So, yeah, I do a variety of different things. So I've done a couple of speeches at some universities, high schools, elementary schools. I'm also a peer mentor on a research study right now. We're trying to develop an e-platform, a virtual care platform for individuals who have experienced their first episode of psychosis.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're just in the feasibility stage right now. So just basically just testing it out, kind of trying to see what do people even think about it. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. I'm really enjoying it. So as a peer mentor on the study, I actually share my story with individuals who are on the study as well, which is really cool. So I'm doing that. I'm also the lead youth advisory committee member for another study that we're doing. It's with CAMH. Mm-hmm. Or basically, it's called Navigate or Episet. And we're trying to basically do a large scale, like collaborative care type of thing at different institutions. I'd have to get more information on that one. Sorry, there's so many of them.
We can always list some stuff in the description after, put some links in there.
Okay, good. Or you can link it to my website.
Or we'll link directly to your website and people can go there and check that out. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then I'm also, what am I? I'm also a co-investigator on another study for mental health, basically trying to co-design different interventions for youth mental health services, which is really cool. And then I'm also working on co-designing a service user mental health education materials. That's where I met Onika, which is awesome. Awesome. Yes, that was awesome. I'm also trying to develop a mental health documentary series, which is very tough.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
you can talk to. I'd love to talk to know more about that. Absolutely.
Okay,
that's like my secret passion is if I could do whatever I want, I would film documentaries for the rest of my life.
Are you serious?
That's what I would do.
Okay,
if I could do
then I need you on my team.
What I would do with anything in my life, like if I could, I would probably do stand-up comedy, film documentaries, and just live my life.
Live like a duck flick.
Like that's what I would do.
Goodness.
Like
okay.
that's what I would do with my life if I didn't have to worry about money.
I need you on my team then because I'm trying to develop a mental health documentary series. It's a little tough because I'm not a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I have a great idea, and I am working with. I do have a producer and a writer. She's produced some things for Netflix, which is pretty cool.
Oh, neat.
But I'm basically spearheading the project. But I'd love to have you guys on if you're interested.
Well, that's stuff that I love doing.
I'm there for you, Augustina.
Yay!
Anything you need.
Teamwork. But yeah, what else do I do? Oh gosh, I do speeches for the Canadian Mental Health Association.
How'd you get it seems like
you're doing a lot. I want to be doing a lot too.
Your journey started 2012 and we're 2018, 2019, and you've been able to accomplish all this. How did you just dove right in?
I literally, as soon as I shared my story, I was like, yo, let's do this. So I literally would push myself. I was I contacted the Canadian Mental Health Association. I was like, hey, I'm lived experience. I would love to share my story. And they're like, yeah, come join, volunteer with us. So that's basically how it started. And it just started
just making those calls.
Yeah. And it just snowballs. Mm-hmm. It just snowballs. And so I was on that one research study and then the team loved me. And they're like, there's another research project they'd love to have you on. So
that's how it starts.
That's how it starts. Yeah,
okay.
and it just snowballs.
Just throw yourself in there.
You literally do. Send emails hey, I'd love to speak at your event. Yeah, you literally have to push yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm really passionate about it, and I love speaking about mental health. So
I know. I have one last question for you.
Of course.
What is the hardest lesson you've had to learn?
Oh, wow.
I would say the hardest lesson you've had to learn going through psychosis. It was 9 months. I think you had said before it was about 9 months. What lessons did you learn about yourself during that period? The hardest one. The hardest lesson.
The hardest lesson. I feel like there's a few, but one
give me all of them. I want to hear all of them.
One that really stands out for me is if I don't push myself, no one else will.
Mm-hmm.
I love that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel so. When I came back from Edmonton to Burlington, and I was just laying there depressed, literally waiting for God to intervene. I don't know if the sky, I was waiting for the skies to open and Jesus was just gonna come down, appear and be I'm gonna save you now, Augustina. But that was definitely one lesson I learned, was that if I don't push myself, no one else is gonna do it for me.
Thank you.
Because you really got to. And I think another hard thing I learned was that it's so important to be patient, not only with others, but with yourself. Mm-hmm. And I feel a lot of people are very patient with others, but we're not patient with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing I learned, was that I just need to be patient with myself, and everything happens for a reason, and things take time.
Everything in its own time. That's what my mother always says.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that was so when I had the episode this summer, that was the hard thing for me, was I was actually mad at myself some days, because I was I made so much progress and look where I am now. And then I literally had to remind myself, like, no, Tina, be patient.
This too shall pass.
Exactly. This too shall pass. Yeah.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. It was
long.
It was incredible.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's going to be worth listening to because it was incredible. And thank you again so much, Augustina. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, man. I want to give a shout out to all my family and friends. Without their support, I definitely wouldn't be here right now. Definitely want to give a shout out to the Phoenix program in Burlington. They're awesome. Also, Dr. Catherine Aitchison, who's in Edmonton, who was my psychiatrist. She's awesome. Just everybody, all my friends and family. God, I want to thank God, my team. Yeah, I want to thank you guys for having me here and supporting me. And I also I want to thank God and the universe because, we're all here for a purpose. And I'm just glad I made it this far.
I truly believe that. If you guys have any questions for Augustina about her journey or the things that she is doing in our community to make mental health, top of the mind and, a focused on issue. If you have any comments or questions for her, JR, tell them how they could reach us. Or for us. I mean, we're always here too.
Yeah.
we're here every week, so.
Yeah, so you can definitely reach Augustina. Her information will be in the description below. You can get connected with her on her website. If you want to connect with Onika or myself, you can connect with us at dysh, dysh, at daintydysh.com. You can also check out some more of Onika's writing at onikadainty.com. You can check out our website where we're going through a revamp right now. We're trying to make it a little bit more positive space and trying to, I guess, bring more resources in on our website, daintydysh.com. So that's why it's been down for a little while. We're just working on it, trying to make it better.
I was like wondering where it was because I had checked it out after you told me, and I was like, I can't find anything. What's going on?
No, we're going. We found that some things that weren't really aligning with the message that we want to push. So kind of brought that down. We're working on it. It should be up. Probably by the time this is airing, it should be up.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts,
give us a 5. You deserve a 5.
Thank you so much.
Yes, give us a 5.
Give us a 5. Subscribe. If you're listening to us on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, leave a comment. Onika definitely replies to the comments.
You know it.
So thank you much for listening there. If you're listening to us on SoundCloud, thank you so much for listening there. We truly appreciate you. Augustina, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for letting us know about the Phoenix program, DSM, CBT, all those cool things.
Art therapy, dance therapy.
Knowing that, you said, and that one thing near at the end, you said that, we have to take on our own responsibility to some degree. Our mental health. Self-advocacy. That's 100%. Something Onika, you speak about a lot. So, thank you so much for everyone who's listening. I truly appreciate everybody. I know Onika does. And that's it for me.
All right. Well, again, Augustina, thank you so much for being here. We hope to have you back on the show 100%. Very, very soon to talk about the issues of the day. But for now, that has been the dish of the day, and I hope y'all have yourselves a very, very, very happy hump day. I hope you recorded that.